Captain Marcus Kane stood at attention in the pristine white corridors of the Terran Royal Palace as alarm shrieked through the marble halls. Queen Helena's face appeared on every communication screen, her usual composed demeanor cracked with desperation that sent ice through his veins. The woman who had ruled the Terran Empire for 15 years, who had never shown weakness even during the Centauri Wars, now gripped the edges of her ornate desk with trembling hands. "Captain Kane, report to the throne room immediately. We have a situation that requires your specific expertise." Her voice carried an undertone he had never heard before. Fear. Kane's polished boots echoed against the marble as he moved through corridors filled with panicked staff members. Royal guards rushed past him carrying sealed cases while diplomatic personnel whispered urgently into communication devices. The smell of ozone from overheated electronics filled the air. The massive doors of the throne room opened to reveal Queen Helena standing before the great viewing window that overlooked Earth's capital city. Her silver crown caught the light from the cityscape below, but her shoulders sagged beneath its weight. Behind her, Admiral Rebecca Cross stood rigid, her uniform pressed to perfection despite the chaos surrounding them. "Your Majesty." Kane approached and dropped to one knee, following protocol even as his mind raced through dozens of possible scenarios. Assassination attempts, invasion threats, political coups. "Rise, Captain. What I'm about to tell you must never leave this room." Queen Helena turned to face him, revealing dark circles beneath her eyes and a pallor that suggested sleepless nights. 3 days ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected something approaching from the outer systems. Not ships, not debris, something else entirely. Admiral Cross stepped forward, her expression grim. "The objects appear to be biological in nature, massive. They've already consumed 2 mining colonies in the asteroid belt. Everything. Metal, rock, organic matter. Nothing remains." Kane's training kept his face neutral, but his pulse quickened. "Hostile alien life, Your Majesty?" "We don't know. They haven't responded to any communication attempts. They simply move from system to system, consuming everything in their path." Queen Helena walked to her throne but didn't sit. "Our military is prepared for conventional warfare, Captain. This is something beyond our understanding." The Queen's fingers drummed against the armrest of her throne, a nervous habit Kane had never witnessed before. "You served in the Deep Space Reconnaissance Division before joining the Royal Guard. You've encountered unknown phenomena that our regular forces couldn't handle." Kane nodded slowly. "The Vanguard missions, yes. But Your Majesty, those were small-scale investigations. This sounds like it requires the entire fleet. The fleet is already mobilizing, but we need someone who can think beyond standard military doctrine. Someone who has faced the unknown and returned." Queen Helena's eyes met his directly. "Captain, I'm asking you to take command of our first contact protocols. If these entities can be reasoned with, you're our best chance." Admiral Cross activated a holographic display showing the approaching objects. Kane studied the swirling organic shapes that seemed to shift and pulse with their own rhythm. They moved through space like living creatures, leaving emptiness in their wake. No ships he had ever seen moved with such fluid purpose. "How long do we have?" Kane asked. 72 hours until they reach our outer colonies, perhaps a week before they threaten Earth itself." The Queen's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Captain, I've ruled this empire through wars, famines, and political upheavals, but this is beyond anything I've prepared for." Kane watched the holographic display cycle through images of the consumed colonies. Where bustling mining operations had existed mere days before, only empty space remained. No debris, no trace that millions of people had lived and worked there. The thoroughness of the destruction defied comprehension. "Your Majesty, if I may ask, why me specifically?" Kane kept his voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was requesting. "Admiral Cross has more experience with fleet operations." Queen Helena exchanged a glance with the Admiral before responding. "Because 12 years ago you encountered something similar during the Proxima incident, something you reported as classified beyond standard military understanding. Your mission files remain sealed, but I know you made contact with entities that existed outside our normal comprehension of life." Kane's jaw tightened. The Proxima incident, 3 months of his life that existed in classified files so deep that even he couldn't access them fully. Abduce. Fragments of memories surfaced unbidden, whispers in languages that weren't consciousness, that existed without form. The feeling of standing at the edge of an abyss that stared back. Queen Helena continued, "You returned from that mission changed, Captain. Your psychological evaluations noted enhanced intuition regarding alien psychology. Your subsequent assignments showed an uncanny ability to predict and counter non-human tactical thinking." The truth hung in the air between them. Kane had never fully understood what happened during those classified months, but he knew something fundamental had shifted within his perception. He saw patterns where others saw chaos. He heard meaning in silence. "I'll need complete authority over first contact protocols," Kane said finally, "and access to any research we have on non-carbon-based life forms." Relief flickered across Queen Helena's features. "Done. Admiral Cross will provide you with whatever resources you require. Captain Kane, the fate of our species may depend on your success." As if summoned by her words, another alarm began to sound throughout the palace. Kane stood at the command center's central console as dozens of technicians worked frantically around him. The massive display screen showed real-time feeds from deep space monitoring stations, their data streams painting an increasingly dire picture. The entities had accelerated their approach, moving faster than any previous calculations had suggested possible. Agent Caroline Foster approached, with a datapad clutched to her chest. Her usual confidence had given way to barely controlled anxiety. "Captain, we've received additional intelligence from our surviving scout ships. These entities appear to be learning from each encounter." Kane studied the tactical analysis she provided. The patterns showed clear adaptation. Where the first colony had taken the entities 6 hours to consume, the second had fallen in half that time. They were becoming more efficient. "Learning suggests intelligence," Kane observed. "That could work in our favor." Admiral Cross joined them at the central display. "How do you figure, Captain?" "Intelligence makes them more dangerous, not less. Intelligent species can be reasoned with. They can make choices. Animals simply follow their nature." Kane highlighted specific data points on the screen. "Look at their movement patterns. They're not consuming randomly. There's purpose here. Goal-oriented behavior." Dr. Nathan Pierce, the lead xenobiologist assigned to Kane's team, interrupted their discussion. "Captain, we've identified something significant. The entities appear to be targeting specific mineral compositions. They're not just consuming everything indiscriminately." Kane turned to face the scientist. "What kind of minerals?" "Rare earth elements, particularly those used in advanced computing and energy storage. They're essentially harvesting the technological components of our colonies while leaving basic organic matter largely untouched." Pierce's excitement was palpable despite the circumstances. "This suggests they have sophisticated needs, not just hunger." Admiral Cross frowned. "Are you suggesting these things are after our technology?" "Possibly. Or they require specific elements for their own biological processes." Pierce called up molecular analysis data. "Captain, what if they're not hostile in the traditional sense? What if they're simply gathering resources they need to survive?" Kane felt a familiar sensation, that subtle shift in perspective that had guided him through countless dangerous encounters. The fragments of memory from the Proxima incident stirred again. Entities that existed beyond human understanding, operating according to logic that seemed alien until the patterns became clear. "Agent Foster, I need you to compile every instance of interspecies first contact from our database. Focus on encounters where initial assumptions about hostility proved incorrect." Kane moved to a secondary workstation. "Dr. Taeon, Pierce, run detailed analysis on what resources Earth and our colonies possess that these entities might require." Queen Helena entered the command center, her presence commanding immediate attention from everyone present. She moved to Kane's position with purposeful steps. "Captain, we've lost contact with 3 more Outer Rim installations. The entities have begun targeting our communication relays." Kane studied the updated tactical display. The pattern was becoming clearer. The entities weren't randomly destroying infrastructure. They were systematically dismantling humanity's ability to coordinate a response, but their precision suggested they understood exactly what they were targeting. Your Majesty, I believe these entities are trying to prevent us from mounting an organized defense, but not because they want to destroy us, Kane said carefully. They're buying themselves time to complete whatever they're actually here to accomplish. Admiral Cross stepped closer. That's a significant assumption, Captain. What if you're wrong? Then we prepare for both possibilities. Military response remains our backup plan. But first, we attempt communication on their terms. Kane called up the Deep Space Communication Array controls. Dr. Pierce, what frequencies have we used for our communication attempts? Standard radio, gravitational wave patterns, mathematical sequences, prime number, progressions, Pierce rattled off. Everything in our first contact protocols. Kane shook his head. All human-centric approaches. We're trying to talk to them the way we would want to be talked to. He paused, accessing memories that felt both familiar and foreign. What if they communicate through action rather than signal? What if their consumption patterns are actually a form of communication? Queen Helena's eyes narrowed. Explain, Captain. They're taking specific elements in specific quantities from specific locations. What if that's not random harvesting? What if it's a message? Kane began mapping the consumed colonies on a three-dimensional display. Agent Foster, overlay this data with stellar cartography. Show me the pattern of their approach relative to known galactic features. As the holographic map materialized, a clear geometric pattern emerged. The entities weren't moving randomly through space. They were following a precise trajectory that formed mathematical relationships with nearby star systems. Dr. Pierce gasped. Captain, that's a fractional sequence. They're following mathematical relationships between stellar masses and gravitational fields. Kane felt the pieces clicking into place. They're not invading, they're navigating. These entities are using our solar system as a waypoint in a much larger journey. But why are they taking our resources? Admiral Cross demanded. Because they need fuel for wherever they're going, Kane replied. The question is whether they understand that those resources belong to inhabited worlds, or if they simply see them as available materials. Queen Helena moved closer to the display. Are you saying this could be resolved through negotiation? Kane nodded slowly. If I'm right, Your Majesty, if they're intelligent travelers who don't realize they're harming inhabited worlds, then we need to find a way to communicate our existence and negotiate an alternative solution. Alarms sounded again. Agent Foster rushed to her communication console. Captain, incoming transmission from Deep Space Monitoring Station 7. The entities have changed course. They're heading directly for Earth. Admiral Cross stepped toward the tactical console. That doesn't sound like navigation behavior, Captain. Kane studied the new trajectory data, his mind racing through possibilities. Either his theory was completely wrong, or something had changed to alter the entity's behavior. Dr. Pierce, what happened at Monitoring Station 7? What did they detect? Pierce's fingers flew across his workstation. They were running deep spectrum analysis on the entity's biological signatures when the course change occurred. They were scanning them. Kane realized. The entities interpreted our scientific observation as a threat or a challenge. Queen Helena's voice carried new urgency. Captain, you have 18 hours to establish communication before our defense fleet engages these entities. If your diplomatic approach fails, we cannot afford to hesitate. Kane straightened his shoulders. The weight of an entire species' survival pressed against his consciousness, but beneath the pressure, he felt that familiar calm that had guided him through the impossible before. Understood, Your Majesty. Prepare the diplomatic ship for launch. It's time to make contact. The diplomatic vessel Harmony launched from Earth's primary orbital station with Kane at its helm and a carefully selected crew of linguists, xenobiologists, and communication specialists. The ship's advanced sensor arrays immediately locked onto the approaching entities, revealing details that ground-based observation had missed. Dr. Pierce monitored the biological scanners from his station behind Kane's command chair. Captain, The entities are even more massive than we estimated. Each one measures approximately 50 kilometers in length and appears to be composed of some form of adaptive organic material. Agent Foster coordinated communication protocols while monitoring deep space channels. No response to our standard greeting sequences, Captain. But I'm detecting structured electromagnetic emissions from the entities themselves. They may be trying to communicate. Kane studied the emission patterns on his display. The signals showed complex mathematical relationships, but not in any format that matched human communication theories. Dr. Pierce, compare these patterns to their navigation trajectory. Are we seeing similar mathematical relationships? Pierce worked quickly at his analysis station. Yes, Captain. The emission patterns followed the same fractional sequences they've been using for navigation. It's as if they're broadcasting their intended route. They're not just navigating, Kane realized. They're announcing their intentions, warning other spacefaring species that they're passing through. Agent Foster looked up from her communication console. Warning them of what? Kane felt another piece of the puzzle click into place. Death. They're going to harvest resources along their route. It's a form of cosmic courtesy. They're essentially saying we're coming through your neighborhood and we need supplies. Doc Pierce's scanner readings began fluctuating wildly. Captain, the entities are changing shape. Their organic structure is becoming more complex. On the main viewing screen, Kane watched as the massive entities transformed before their eyes. What had appeared to be simple organic masses began developing intricate surface patterns and extending multiple appendages into space. Agent Foster gasped. Captain, I'm receiving a communication. It's not radio or electromagnetic. It's directly interfacing with our ship's computer systems. Kane's training took over. Full defensive protocols. Don't let them access any critical systems. They're not trying to hack us, Captain. They're trying to establish communication through mathematical interface. Foster's voice carried amazement. They've analyzed our computer language and created a translation protocol. Symbols began appearing on Kane's command display, complex mathematical relationships that slowly resolved into pictures, then abstract concepts. Kane watched as the entities attempted to convey their story through pure mathematical communication. They're travelers, he said softly, understanding flooding through him. Ancient travelers moving between distant galaxies. They've been journeying for millions of years. Dr. Pierce confirmed Kane's interpretation. Captain, they're showing us star charts. Galaxies we've never seen. They're on a journey that spans unimaginable distances. The mathematical communication continued, showing images of countless star systems and civilizations the entities had encountered during their journey. Most were long dead or evolved beyond recognition, but the entities carried memories of each one. Agent Foster translated rapidly. They're expressing confusion about our resistance. In most star systems, the resource requirements for their journey are insignificant compared to available materials. They don't understand why we're concerned. Kane realized the fundamental misunderstanding. To entities that traveled between galaxies and had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, humanity's few colonies represented an infinitesimally small resource requirement. They simply hadn't comprehended that those resources were vital to a young species just beginning to explore space. Dr. Pierce, can you calculate our total mineral output compared to the resources available in uninhabited asteroids and dead worlds in our solar system? Pierce worked quickly. Captain, the entities could harvest everything they need from our asteroid belt alone. Our colonies represent less than 1% of available resources. Kane activated the ship's communication array. Agent Foster, transmit our response. Show them the inhabited worlds they've affected. Make them understand that those resources support living beings. The mathematical communication continued as Kane and his crew worked to convey humanity's perspective. They transmitted images of the colonies before and after the entity's arrival, showing the millions of lives that had been lost. They demonstrated how those resources supported human civilization and expansion. The response came swiftly. Complex mathematical expressions that conveyed surprise, followed by what could only be described as alien regret. They understand now, Foster said with wonder in her voice. They're expressing sorrow for the unintended harm. They want to make amendments. Kane watched as the entities transmitted detailed star charts showing alternative resource locations throughout the solar system. Uninhabited asteroids rich in the minerals they required. Dead worlds with vast deposits available for harvesting. Dr. Pierce monitored the entity's biological patterns. Captain, they're already changing course toward the alternative locations. They're implementing the solution immediately, but Kane knew the situation wasn't completely resolved. What about the colonies they've already consumed? The lives that have been lost? The mathematical communication resumed, and what followed took Kane's breath away. The entities transmitted data showing that they had preserved detailed biological and technological patterns from every world they had encountered during their journey. Every civilization, every species, every individual life. They keep records, Foster whispered. Perfect molecular-level records of everything they've encountered. The entities transmitted an offer. They could reconstruct the consumed colonies exactly as they had been, complete with all inhabitants restored to their precise biological states at the moment before the entity's arrival. To them, preservation and reconstruction of life was a fundamental responsibility of any advanced travelers. Kane stared at the offer displayed on his screen. The power to restore lost lives was beyond anything humanity had imagined possible. But the implications were staggering. Dr. Pierce broke the silence. Captain, they're waiting for our response. Kane activated the communication array once more, knowing that his next decision would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. Transmit acceptance, and send coordinates for our first restored colony. The restoration process began 3 days later under Kane's direct supervision. Queen Helena stood beside him on the observation deck of the research station they had constructed to monitor the entity's work. Below them, one of the ancient travelers slowly reconstructed the mining colony that had been consumed just weeks earlier. The entity's massive organic structure had transformed into something resembling a biological manufacturing facility. Streams of organized matter flowed from its appendages, assembling molecular structures with impossible precision. Buildings materialized atom by atom, followed by complex machinery, and finally, the colonists themselves. Dr. Pierce monitored every stage of the process from his mobile laboratory. The molecular reconstruction is perfect down to the quantum level. Every person, every memory, every personal possession is being restored exactly as it was. Agent Foster coordinated communication between the entity and the restoration monitoring team. The entity is requesting confirmation at each stage. They want to ensure we're satisfied with their work. Kane watched as the first restored colonists began to activate, completely unaware that any time had passed since the moment before the entity's arrival. To them, one instant they had been working in the mines, and the next they were surrounded by observation teams and scientific equipment. Queen Helena spoke softly. Captain, they're offering us something unprecedented. Knowledge of galactic civilization stretching back millions of years. The entity had transmitted vast databases containing the accumulated knowledge and culture of countless species, technologies beyond human comprehension, scientific principles that could advance human civilization by millennia, art and philosophy from civilizations that had flourished and vanished long before Earth had cooled from its formation. But at what cost? Kane replied. We'll never be the same species we were before this contact. Dr. Pierce joined their conversation. Captain, the entity is also offering us something else. Transportation. They're willing to carry human representatives with them to observe other civilizations in distant galaxies. Kane felt the weight of decision settling on his shoulders. The ancient travelers had opened doorways to possibilities that humanity had never dreamed of. But each choice would fundamentally alter the trajectory of human development. Agent Foster approached with a new transmission from the entity. Captain, they're preparing to continue their journey. They want to know if we have any final requests or questions. Kane studied the massive entity as it completed its restoration work. The mining colony below was buzzing with activity as colonists returned to their lives, completely unaware of the cosmic drama that had played out around them. Your Majesty, this encounter will reshape everything we understand about our place in the universe, Kane said. How do we integrate this knowledge with our existing society? Queen Helena considered the question carefully. The same way we've handled every other major advancement in human history, Captain. Carefully, with respect for both progress and preservation of our essential humanity. The entity transmitted a final communication expressing gratitude for the peaceful resolution and offering permanent friendship between their species and humanity. They designated Earth's solar system as a protected area in their galactic navigation charts, ensuring that future travelers would respect human territory. Kane activated the communication array one last time, transmit our gratitude and safe travel wishes, and confirm that human representatives will join their journey to document the experience for our species. As the entity prepared to depart, Kane reflected on the events that had brought them to this moment. A crisis that could have ended human civilization had instead opened doorways to galactic community and knowledge beyond imagination. Dr. Pierce reported from his monitoring station. Captain, all colonies have been fully restored. The entities are beginning their departure sequence. Kane watched as the massive travelers slowly accelerated away from Earth's solar system, carrying with them a small diplomatic craft containing brave human volunteers who would document wonders beyond description. Queen Helena placed a hand on Kane's shoulder. Captain, you've given our species something invaluable today. Not just survival, but perspective on our place in a universe far grander than we ever imagined. The years following the Great Encounter, as historians would later call it, transformed human civilization in ways both subtle and profound. Captain Kane found himself appointed as Earth's first Director of Galactic Relations, coordinating the integration of alien knowledge with human society. The restored colonies had become centers of advanced research, their inhabitants working alongside scientists to understand the implications of their brief molecular dissolution and reconstruction. Many reported enhanced intuition and expanded consciousness, similar to what Kane had experienced during the Proxima incident years earlier. Dr. Pierce had established the Institute for Xenobiological Studies, where teams of researchers worked to comprehend the vast databases provided by the ancient travelers. Every day brought new discoveries about the universe's history and the countless civilizations that had risen and fallen across cosmic time. Agent Foster now led the Interstellar Communication Division, maintaining contact with the traveling entities and preparing protocols for future encounters with alien civilizations. Her work ensured that humanity would never again face the terror of misunderstood first contact. Queen Helena had aged gracefully into the role of Galactic Ambassador, representing Earth in the growing network of civilizations that had been touched by the ancient travelers. Her wisdom and diplomatic skill had earned respect from species across multiple star systems. Kane stood in his office overlooking Earth's primary spaceport, where ships launched daily carrying human explorers to distant stars. The species that had once struggled to establish mining colonies in their own solar system now sent expeditions to galaxies the ancient travelers had revealed. The communication console chimed with an incoming transmission from the diplomatic ship traveling with the entities. Kane activated the holographic display, revealing the face of Commander Lisa Brooks, one of the original volunteers who had joined the galactic journey. Director Kane, we're approaching a remarkable star system. The entities have detected signs of a young civilization that may be experiencing their first contact with galactic travelers, Brooks reported. The entities are requesting permission to share humanity's first contact protocols with these new species. Kane smiled. Permission granted, Commander. Share our experience freely. Help them understand that the universe is vast enough for all civilizations to thrive. As Brooks's transmission ended, Kane reflected on the journey that had brought humanity from a species facing extinction to mentors helping other civilizations navigate their own first encounters with the infinite. The terror that had gripped Earth during those critical days had transformed into wonder and responsibility. Queen Helena entered his office, carrying reports from the latest Galactic Council meeting. Kane, we've received an invitation from the Centauri Federation to participate in their annual symposium on cosmic ethics. They want humans to share our perspective on peaceful resolution of interspecies conflicts. Kane accepted the reports, scanning through invitations from dozens of civilizations across multiple galaxies. It's remarkable, Your Majesty. A few years ago, we thought we were alone in the universe. Now we're teachers and diplomats in a community spanning unimaginable distances. Queen Helena settled into the chair across from his desk. The ancient travelers gave us more than knowledge and technology. They gave us perspective. We learned that our problems, no matter how overwhelming they seem, or part of a much larger story. Through the office window, Kane watched as another ship departed for distant stars, carrying human explorers who would document new worlds and new forms of life. Each mission expanded humanity's understanding of the universe and their place within it. The intercom chimed with a priority message from the Deep Space Communication Array. Kane activated the channel to find Dr. Pierce's excited face on the screen. Director Kane, we've detected something extraordinary. Long-range sensors have identified what appears to be a massive structure approaching from intergalactic space. Initial analysis suggests it could be a traveling city or space habitat, Pierce reported rapidly. The entities have confirmed it's inhabited by one of the ancient civilizations they've encountered during their journey. Kane felt the familiar sensation of standing at the threshold of the unknown. How long until arrival? Approximately 6 months. But Director, the structure is transmitting complex mathematical sequences. They appear to be requesting formal diplomatic contact with Earth's government. Queen Helena leaned forward. A delegation from an ancient civilization wants to meet with humanity specifically? Kane studied the preliminary data Pierce transmitted. Dr. Fouzier. Pierce, have the entities provided any information about this approaching civilization? Only that they're among the oldest continuous civilizations in this galaxy cluster. They're explorers and teachers who travel between galaxies, sharing knowledge and wisdom with younger species. Kane exchanged a look with Queen Helena. Your Majesty, it appears that humanity's reputation for peaceful first contact has spread beyond our local region. Queen Helena smiled. Captain Kane, I believe you'll be organizing another historic first contact, one where we welcome visitors rather than trying to survive their arrival. As Kane began coordinating preparations for humanity's first formal reception of an ancient galactic civilization, he reflected on the extraordinary journey that had begun with desperate alarms echoing through the royal palace. The species that had once feared extinction now stood ready to welcome travelers from across the cosmos. The universe had revealed itself to be vast beyond imagination, filled with civilizations both young and ancient, all connected by the common threads of curiosity, survival, and the desire to understand their place in the infinite expanse of space and time. Kane activated his communication array and began composing humanity's formal response to the approaching delegation, knowing that each word would help determine Earth's role in the continuing story of galactic civilization.